Hi, this is Lou Ann Worley with Rockin Book Reviews, and I'm so happy to be here with Brooke St. James. She is an awesome author, and she writes clean books, which I really love. Before you became an author, you did hairdressing. Tell us about that and how it influenced you and helped you in your writing, if any.
It did. It really did. That's not something I get asked very much, surprisingly, what I did before I became a writer, but I did do hair, and it surprisingly really did help. That's just God's wisdom and his grace to put me in that situation all those years ago. I met a lot of people. When you're doing hair, you're kind of in a unique position with them where you make relationships that are with a lot of people, a lot of different people that are kind of long-term, and also you get to be with them for quite a while, especially if you're doing a color service or something like that. I'm with them 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, and getting to know these people, different jobs, different feelings, different family situations, occupations, all the different elements that people would bring in to my chair. I'm able to reuse in writing, give me a lot of ideas for occupations, especially because there are more than you can dream, things that people do for a job.
You wouldn't think so, though, would you? I mean,
no, very interesting.
Hairdressing won't leave to be a famous writer.
That's how God works.
Before you did hairdressing, you grew up as a youth in Louisiana.
I did.
Traveled a lot, I understand. So you've been throughout the U.S. Tell us about growing up in Louisiana and the differences you've noticed since you've been doing traveling in the cultures throughout the United States.
Yeah, Louisiana's got a lot of Cajun French heritage, so we celebrate that a lot. We have festivals and French music. A lot of people still speak French, try to keep that alive, Cajun French. You could go to a donut shop in the morning and there are a few tables of people sitting around trying to keep that alive, the French language and that culture. Definitely festivals and music going on a lot. Glad that that's coming back, all that stuff. This is the first year that it's all revved up again. So yeah, and the United States is so varied. Like you said, I've traveled and it's so varied in the cultures and the differences. The West Coast is a little more laid back, where the East Coast seems to be a little more fast paced. The South has its own feel, everybody comes sit on the porch and just hang out type of thing. So yeah, it makes for interesting book settings. It has options. Some coastal areas are really different than mountainous areas, and people do different things and have different culture around their setting. That makes for a lot of options in writing, for sure.
How many series have you written?
I had to look this up the other day, honestly, because I did not know. I'm so book by book, just focused on exactly what I'm doing right then, that I forget what I've done in the past. Honestly, the other day, I had to look up to make sure I hadn't used a same couple's name. Like, was Isaac with so-and-so in the past, because I put it away once I'm done with it and I just focus on what I'm doing now. So I looked it up and I've written 13 series and I think 6 or 7 standalone books. But yeah, quite a few series, and they're different in length. They're all different in length. Some are like a 2 series up to a 10-book series. Oh. I don't give myself rules with that. Even when I start out to write a series, I don't quite know how many books will be in it. I don't plan that far ahead.
Well, how do you know then when it's ended?
I kind of know when I start the final book that it will be the last one. I think one time I've surprised myself and been in the last book and couldn't bear to let it go. And 1 or 2 times I've also done a spin-off where a character from this series will have their own series start and we'll start from there. So I can't quite let go type of thing. But in general, it's just book by book, and that's how I work.
boggles me how how writers think.
I
That's
bet
why
we're
I
all so
wanna be-
different too, because I know my process is very organic compared to a lot of people with, I don't do a whole lot of planning or trying to fit a certain formula or any of that. I do have things that I do all the time in my writing, but it's not in an effort to fit a formula or anything like that. It's just the way I tell a story.
But still, don't you have to do a certain amount of research?
Definitely. I mean, when I find that it's necessary, if a character is going to be an expert on something, I definitely feel like I need to research that subject. On the other hand, I don't give myself pressure to become an expert on the subject because it's a romance novel.
Right.
You're not trying to become an engineer by reading it. So if I'm going to represent an engineer, I want to know the basics of what he's saying, and I don't want to say something out of line, but I also don't put a lot of pressure on myself.
At what point did you decide that you are going to become a writer?
It was about 15 years ago when I started reading a lot. Like before then, all through high school, and even after, when I was, years ago after high school, doing hair and things like that, I would pick up a book every now and then, and I appreciated reading. I thought people were smart who did it, but I just didn't consider myself a reader. I really didn't. And until I found reading romance, that was really what appealed to me. A romance novel got me going. And then I just started consuming. And when you're doing that, you can kind of see the things you like in a book and the things you don't like. And I would find myself reading a book and think I would do that different, or kind of thinking more like a writer would as I was consuming. And then it just kind of went through that process, and I gained confidence through reading, honestly.
What process did you have to go through in becoming a published author, and what challenges?
Publishing through traditional publishing is the number one challenge, is rejection. I mean, you're almost always going to face rejection when you try to go traditional publishing. It's sad but true. And that's something that I did a little bit of, and then I skipped that completely and just went to indie author, which publishing is the easy part on that. You could go write down gibberish almost and publish it, and you're a published author. That's how easy it is to publish on Amazon or wherever you're going to publish. However, then comes the challenge of selling your books and dealing with people who have bought your books that judge them. So other challenges come up after publishing that for an indie author that are different than just publishing, if that makes sense.
It's got to be discouraging at times. So how did you rise above that and become so successful?
I have a very strong, supportive family. It is very discouraging at times. It really is, because you'll release something, you put your all into it, you think it's my best ideas, I've tried really hard. And then as an indie author, when you put something out the first time, you think, oh, okay, I have 100 people in my email. I have all these friends and family who are going to support me. If they all tell one person, then that's 500 people. You get this math going in your head of how many people will buy your first book when you put it out. And then you put it out and it's a Tuesday and people are mowing the grass and they don't really care to go check out your book. Even if they love you, they don't understand that relationships usually don't translate to that type of support.
Yeah, the importance of what your goal is.
Yes, right. So then you are automatically let down. That first letdown of no one's buying it or whatever. And so it's just a process of keeping going, keeping writing, working on the next thing, even if this last one's not doing what you want it to. And still striving, trying to reach new people who don't know you, and just put your name out there, put your books out there, and keep going, even in the midst of it's not turning out like you want it.
I find that old adage of you're at least accepted in your own hometown than you are everywhere else.
That's true. It's so
It's
true.
your own family.
Yes, it's true, because they just know you as the hairdresser. You know what I mean? They know you as, so they don't assume you're capable of whatever. And that's okay. It's not, back then, years and years ago, I probably took it personal, but now I see that I'm probably not as supportive as I should be to other people who are trying to do stuff, you know?
Exactly. That when I started my blog almost 9 years ago, 9 years, June 1st, but that's what all bombarded me, because I thought, with all my family, I have all
Got
these
100 followers. Right.
and I think maybe 5.
Exactly. And just getting over that first disappointment, you know, when all the people who you thought would be there aren't quite there, or whatever. You didn't expect it to turn out like it did. But then if you're able to keep going, able to keep pushing past that, then you'll start to reach people who don't know you and they just judge you from scratch, you know.
It's great that you were able to overcome that. With today's media, many experts are saying that the trend of the future is audiobooks, and I believe it. You are an audiobook fan, and most of yours are in audio, correct?
Love them. Yeah, as many as I can get over to that. I'm working on them one by one for sure. Love them.
So first of all, what's the importance of getting it on audio? And second of all, how do you pick a good narrator? Because they can make or break your book.
They really can. And I've read a book and liked it, and listened to it and not liked it. So I know they can. And as a fan, I think that's important in choosing a narrator, is to be a fan. And so I'm an audiobook fan, like you said, and I had listened to a lot of them, and I saw how different narrators use their voice and represented men and women, and how soothing it was, just the feel of their voice and their tone and their abilities. And I was able to judge just by listening who I liked personally. And other people it's art, you know, people have different views on that, but when choosing, I chose the ones that I liked. And I've got a wonderful woman, Kate Rudd, who does my stuff. She's amazing, and very thankful and blessed to have her, for sure.
So how did you find narrators to read your books?
Well, I made a list of my top ones. I made like a list of 5 that I'm gonna have one of these. Let's do it. Let's get one of these girls. And
these people you all had listened to on audiobooks yourself?
Yes. And I had listened to them all a number of times and kind of interviewed them through my listening. The ones that I liked, they were consistent. They were, and Kate was the first one I reached out to, and she was my #1 choice, and she's been working on my books ever since.
I had a similar experience as you had. Years ago, I listened to a couple of audio tapes, and I did not like them. I did not like the way the narrator read the book. And then one of them, I also had read the book before, and listening to it, it just, I would never have bought that book if I had listened to it first. But then a couple of years ago, I when we had California fires all over the place and the smoke was coming into our hometown, my eyes became, the doctor thought it was an eye infection because it was so bad, but it wasn't. It was just the allergies from all the smoke and stuff coming through. And I could not read for like 2 months, that I could barely read anything. And so at that time I thought, well, I've got to, keep my blog going. So that's when I started listening to some audiobooks, and I fell in love, because I found also when I'm having a hard time sleeping at night, I can put an audiobook on and it would relax me and I could fall asleep.
That's right.
And so I have now, like you, I have discovered the book. It's the narrator that makes a difference, whether it's good to listen to audiobooks or not.
And there are a lot of talented narrators out there. So
Absolutely.
just because I made my top 5 doesn't mean there's only 5 good ones. There are a ton of really talented men and women who do that. But I listen mostly to romance, and was able to have somebody in my genre that I knew they could represent the feelings and the kind of feel of the books that I write. So yeah, it worked out.
Well, I'm all for audiobooks now myself, because I found also I can do housework and other things.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Laundry, I'm a big multitasker. I really am. So I love to read while I'm doing other stuff.
Will you continue to write contemporary romance, or you have desire to go into other genres?
I like to read other genres. I like Regency romance a lot. Just like we were saying about researching and do you need to be an expert and things like that. I don't know enough about Regency, the olden times, to really be able to represent it. I love to read it, but I don't feel confident enough. Corsets and all that technical stuff that you would need to say, I don't know. I haven't put in the time to do all that. That being said, I do take what I'm doing book by book. So while I can't see myself doing anything but what I'm currently doing, I also don't give myself rules or any kind of long-term fixed idea for that, because I may at some point choose to do something else, but definitely for the foreseeable future, I'm comfortable where I'm at for sure.
One thing I really like about your books is they're clean. And in this day and age, that stirs up controversy, just opposite of what it did years ago. And what challenges and how have you dealt with this and still become so successful?
Well, that's God too, honestly. I personally, I haven't had any temptations, or I haven't had to really filter myself language wise, because in my personal life, I don't use cuss words or anything like that. So it's not like something I have to make an effort at to keep those out of my books. Sexual content, I'll admit it has been a thought that's come through my mind, because you have romance readers, and then you have clean romance readers, and then you have Christian romance readers. So I've put myself in a pretty small box here with who I appeal to. And when a release doesn't go the way I want it to, or I'm thinking a sales report looks a certain way, I do have temptation to get into the more regular romance genre. But ultimately, I believe in biblical family values, and I know that a choice to do that at this point would be more emotional or driven by comparison, or not just staying true to who I am and what I want to do. So, and I have a wonderful family who supports me in that and encourages me to stay on track in that. And so I've been able to just focus on that and not really care about what I could be, who I could be appealing to, or any of that.
I have raised my family to be very Christian, but I even have some children and grandchildren who question, because they say, but it's real life when you have bad language and when you have these sexual things. It's not reality to be so squeaky clean. And I disagree, because my reality isn't that.
Yes.
And I believe in the school system, my kids may pick up all this stuff, but it's not something I want for them. So in my home, I don't allow it.
Yes.
And I don't know, this is a problem. And so have you gotten this? Have you run into this situation?
Yeah, I do see that it is definitely a temptation, and it does appeal to a wider range of people. Like I was saying, you have a bigger group of people who would appeal to kind of the more carnal stuff. I just think it's worth standing your ground ultimately. I haven't always written Christian romance. I did that. I wrote romance for a while before I switched over. I unpublished everything I previously did, even though it was a different pen name and it wasn't associated with me and people wouldn't have even known. I could have kept bringing money in through that name. I unpublished everything I did and just gave my work to God. And he has taken that little chunk and made it, I've done way better than I was before when I was trying to appeal to all these people. And so even now when I struggle or whatever with this audience that I have, thinking it could be bigger, I remember that I've tried that before and that God blessed me for choosing that path. And I'm not perfect, and your children and grandchildren and my children and future grandchildren, none of us are perfect, and we'll have temptations and we have real life and all that. But I kind of just wanted, and my books are not preachy. They're not preachy at all. I'm not trying to tell people what they're doing wrong. It's a romance novel. It's fun. It's fun to read romance novel. But just because of who I am and my relationship with God and where he has brought me and my own personal path, my love for him just comes out in my books. And so I feel like if I would try to add or take away anything to appeal to people, it would be not true to who I am.
My hat's off to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's wonderful. And it's ironic to me that so many people will say, you can't mix God into it and have it successful and so forth, because that's saying all of us who believe in God or who have values that are different than theirs, we have just as much rights as what they do. And our rights shouldn't be discounted any more than theirs should.
Right. And just as much fun.
Yes. And like you said, and you're a bestseller.
Well, God's grace, I'm telling you.
Okay. Is there any comments you'd like to make before we close?
I can't think of anything. It's been very nice to meet you.
Same here. It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. And you have a giveaway for us, correct?
Yes. Easy Does It.
And tell us a little bit about that.
I am releasing a book called Easy Does It through HarperCollins, which, in my early career, in my early days of releasing books, I tried to get a publisher very hard as traditional publishing. And then that didn't work out. And I did indie author, which I'm still doing. And then after years of success, finally a publisher came to me. So we are releasing Easy Does It. It's the first that will be released through HarperCollins, and it's coming out April 5th. And we're doing a giveaway for that book.
It's a print copy for US and Canada, digital copy for anyone outside the US and Canada. We'll be running that on rockinbookreviews.com. And I will be posting the link there. Okay, it's been a joy. And again, I wish you the best. I think that is a wonderful title, because caught me off guard, because I thought, well, this is someone they easily fell in love and whatever. But I said I didn't realize that he was actually a boxer.
Yes, yeah, nickname. That's right.
This is Luann signing off, and we wish you all the best, Brooke, in your new book and more to come, I hope.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
And we want you to search the universe through books. Goodbye now.